Hello, YouTube. Tonight I want to talk about mental illness and the various social stigmas that seem to come along with it, and my opinion on how it's dealt with overall by society and psychiatry in general. It's kind of ironic, a little bit about my story. I had a pretty bad back injury. I have a 2-level fusion, and it didn't work out right. It didn't heal properly, and the hardware broke. And I've had all kinds of surgeries to try and fix it, and none have ever worked. And when I was going through my long-term disability process, when it was just my back and my physical injuries, my back and my leg, I was. They were requesting that I go to see a different doctor every month. That I've had more MRIs and CAT scans than you can imagine. I probably glow in the dark. And it was always, you were like, people always thought that, when you have a physical injury, people are like, oh, you're making it up. It's not as bad as you say it is. You can still work and this, that, and everything else. And people, aren't quite as understanding, or, maybe they're not quite as scared. Like I said, ironically, I went through this for about 3 years. Between going to different doctors every month and seeing Social Security doctors and long-term disability insurance doctors and my doctors and this doctor and that doctor. And boom. Then I had the episode where I went kind of crazy and had to be hospitalized for an extended period of time. And, after that, I came out, of course, after being in the hospital, once they got me straightened out, I was in the hospital for a long time. And, I really lost my cookies. But, and it seems when I was in the hospital, what they do is they pump you so full of medication, antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, seizure medications, all sorts of stuff. And they get you in a state where you're basically oblivious. You're kind of like The Walking Dead. It's... People don't think that happens a lot anymore. It's not quite as bad as back in the Thorazine, haloperidol days, where you see from like the 50s and the 60s where people are, drooling on themselves and everything else. But, they put you basically one step above comatose. You don't know if you're coming or going. You're constantly exhausted. You shuffle around like you're, walking on ice and stuff like that. And it's like they just try and keep you, sedate, and then they send you to all these therapy groups and everything else, but it doesn't, in my opinion, it really didn't do anything, because I really didn't know what the hell was going on to begin with. Sure, it knocked the crazy out of me, but it knocked everything else out of me too. And like I said, it still took them, I think, to be honest with you, I think I could have been out of the hospital in 2 weeks. There was no reason for me to be there as long as I was. I was a little bit uncooperative and, a little bit in denial at that point, where I kind of, didn't want to work with the program and, cooperate with the doctors and the other staff and stuff like that. So I think it was kind of like, they just keep you there until you play the game, until I decided I wanted to play the game, I stayed there. And then once I decided to play the game, I went home. But, and then after that, once I went home, I, continued to see, like I said, I see my psychiatrist every 2 weeks. I see a psychologist every 2 weeks. And I go to a schizospectrum illness support group every 2 weeks. And, I'm on right now. I take a lot of medications. I take 800 milligrams of Seroquel a day. That's a lot. That's pretty much the max dosage. It kind of knocks you out. It catches up with me sometimes. Like today, for example, last night my family went out to dinner for my brother's birthday, and we got home about 8 o'clock, and I played some video games for about an hour, and after that I was just exhausted, and I went to bed about 9:30, quarter to 10, and I didn't get out of bed till almost 4 o'clock this afternoon. I was just, just so run down and exhausted, and a lot of that has to do with me too, because I don't sleep properly. I stay up for days at a time sometimes, and, but that's part of the illness as well. But anyway, the stigmas that come with mental illness, number one, people who suffer from mental illness aren't all dangerous. We aren't all ranting homicidal maniacs, and maybe 1%, if not less, than people who have suffered from mental illness are dangerous or violent or anything like that. Just because I have schizoaffective disorder doesn't mean I'm gonna, snap in a minute and start chasing people around the shopping mall with a 12-inch butcher knife or a loaded gun or something like that. We're most of us are, if anything, we're more myself. At least I'm more self-destructive than I am outwardly destructive. I destroy myself before I hurt anybody else or put anybody else through that. I've been like that my whole life, pretty much. Number two is, the stigma. This is kind of the stigma and society's reaction to it. Is, again, just like in the hospital, it seems like now, even with my doctor, the solution to everything is, keep the crazy people sedated, keep us so tired that we can't do anything out of the ordinary, which is, it's kind of a shame because, again, a lot of people, their quality of life suffers more than I think it has to. Having a mental illness in itself deters your quality of life. But then when you're medicated basically to a zombie-like state, that just takes further away from your quality of life when you don't necessarily always need to be that medicated. Now, granted, I'm going to say there are times when I do need to be in that condition because, I'm having a symptomatic episode. You know what I mean? There's times when, it's good to be, not unconscious, but it's good to be sedate, with the anxiety and stuff, and it helps with the paranoia and the delusions and the hallucinations and everything. It's good to be a little bit slowed down. But, the solution to everything, mental illness, seems to be just knock them out. Knock the crap out of them and they'll be fine. We'll hop them up on drugs. They'll sleep all the time. That way they won't cause any trouble. They won't be a bother to anybody. And we'll just pray that they don't open fire in a crowded shopping mall. Which I think is wrong, because like I said, people with mental illness, depending on the mental illness and the severity of it, can function fine in society. I myself, probably not. I don't, here doing a YouTube video in the safety of my own house, in the inner sanctum of my, we'll call it my computer room, here I feel safe. I feel no anxiety. I know I control everything. Like with making the video, I control the camera, I control the lighting, I control the sound. And that makes me feel at ease. So, I do seem like a normal, high-functioning person. But if you put me out into the real world, I'm very awkward at times. I get very withdrawn when I'm not feeling 100% normal. I act, I'm very introverted because of the fact that with the anxiety and things like that, I'm afraid what I say is going to be taken the wrong way, or I'm not going to communicate something the way I want to. And it's, very difficult. It would be, for me to go to work every day would be, virtually impossible. And plus anything stressful, I totally get, bent out of shape over, I just get all wound up and it's just a terrible mess. So, I couldn't, but, for the most part, I'm pretty high functioning. I see some of the people that I see at therapy and, at the doctor's office and in my therapy group and things like that are nowhere near as high functioning, and they need things like group homes and things like that. I'm fortunate that I, it was kind of a plus situation for my parents that, I come back and live with them and, because I can help them now that they're getting along in years. And they can keep an eye on me and help me, even though, like I said, they kind of have a bit of denial about my whole situation. They are still there if I do ever, God forbid, I do get out of control and don't know it. Usually I know it before it happens and I can get myself where I need to be. But, it's kind of like I said, it works out for both parties. But again, the stigmas that come with mental illness, in this year 2016, I think it's I don't want to say unfair or unjust, because life is hard, and you play the hand that you're dealt the best that you can. But again, people with mental illness, we're not dangerous. We're not all ranting lunatics. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that you see that are people that don't get the proper medical attention. With the proper medical attention, the proper doctors, the proper medications, the proper therapy, things like that, we can be pretty high functioning. Maybe not live a totally normal life, but we can live still a pretty good life. My life isn't that bad. I can't really complain all that much. But, again, in closing, let me say, if you are experiencing, symptoms of mental illness, think you might have a mental illness, you're just having a hard time, depression, that's more than just feeling a little down in the dumps. If you're suffering from this, you'll totally understand what I mean. Or if you've ever suffered from a bout of depression, it's more than just feeling a little blue. It's more than the blues or feeling a little bit down in the dumps. It's hard to describe. It feels so bad. But if you are suffering from anything like that, do get help. There is help out there. See a doctor. Go to a hospital. See a social worker. See a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist. Something. There's no need to suffer silently anymore in this day and age. And if you are afraid of the stigma that comes with it, well, you just have to decide. You have to make a decision. There are people that are advocating for things like this, like myself, that hopefully, as we move forward, people will see that, again, we're not dangerous. We're not a menace to society. We don't need to be segregated from society because we're dangerous and might hurt people, for the most part, we're normal people. We just interpret things a little bit different than everybody else. Anyway, I hope everybody has a good night, has a good weekend. I will talk to you soon. And until we meet again, this is Treg out.